Welcome to the Crazy Wisdom Podcast. My guest here is Kapil Gupta. I'm really excited to have you on. I've learned a lot from your tweets, and I'm really excited to kind of dig into what you have to say. Really enjoy about what you say is that you wanted to keep this organic and not have any questions beforehand. So I'm really excited about kind of seeing where it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about I don't know, what you spend your time doing?
I mean, to put it succinctly, I spend my time trying to find the truth about the things that truly matter in the lives of human beings.
And so can you put that truth into words?
Essentially, the truth is something which can no longer be indivisible or broken down any further, that it is the bedrock foundation behind why something is happening or what the source of a particular problem is, or where things essentially arise from, as opposed to trying to make them better or to fix them, to discover their source, and in discovering the source, allowing things to become perfect of their own accord.
And so how do you help CEOs and the other people you work with find this truth that you're talking about?
Well, essentially, most of it is unlearning and deconditioning. As human beings, we've been exposed to a litany and a barrage of prescriptions and information of various types. And that information and prescriptions and perspectives and the way to be and how to look at things all have had an effect upon us, in that they have shaped who we have become and how we see the world. And fundamentally, most, if not all of it, is completely false. It has no basis in reality. It only has a basis in tradition and in status quo and knowledge that has been passed along from one person to another. And the person who was the originator of that information largely didn't do it because of truth. It just sounded right. And so human beings have a tendency and a habit to like things that sound nice. And the sounding nice of it becomes their litmus test as to whether it is something to pursue. And so humans tend to be very cosmetic creatures. And the more societal you become, the more cosmetic you become. And so you view things from the top of the head and whatever comes to mind first, and according to what you've heard all along and whatever the books and the magazines say. And it really is never about a true, genuine journey to discover what really is the case, as opposed to what you would like the case to be or what you've been told that it is.
Is our inability to go deep, is that a natural human instinct, or is that something that we have been conditioned to do?
It's been conditioned.
Yeah.
It isn't an inability. It is just a conditioning to having become so attracted to what has been given to us and so cemented in that world that it's because its alternative has never ever been proposed. There never has been any reason to look elsewhere.
And so you talk a lot about, once you kind of discover that your life might not be going in the way you want it, a lot of people have the tendency to go the opposite way, but it just kind of falls into the same pattern. It's just the desire for the opposite. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, it is very difficult to talk to people, and the reason for that is that if I say that X is not the way, I have to, at light speed, finish that sentence before they, at light speed, jump to the opposite And so if X is not the way, the natural instinct is to say, well, so you're saying Y is the way. No, I didn't say that.
Mm.
X is not the way and Y is never the way, as I often say, is that it's never 0 and it's never 10 and it absolutely is never 5. It's always like 2.63798. And you can prescribe 0 and you can prescribe 10 and you can prescribe 5, but you can't prescribe 2.67398.
Mm. And this is what my teacher talks a lot about, is being very, very precise and accurate in exactly what we're talking about. But that accuracy and that precision is sometimes almost romantic in its sense of being able to get to that level of accuracy and precision.
It depends what you mean by accuracy and precision. It depends how you are defining that.
And that's something he tells me, so I haven't quite come to an understanding of that. So what are some ways that you can tell if a client that you're working with or somebody you might work with isn't ready to accept the truth that you're talking about?
By the questions they ask.
And what type of questions?
Typically, there's always either a quiet or a not so quiet element of outrage.
And and to me, I feel like I saw an example of this just a couple of days ago working with my teacher and watching him teach someone else meditation, and the anger came up so quickly and was directed at him. But from my viewpoint, it didn't look like anything was happening, but there was so much anger and like rage coming up. Do you find that happens a lot, or do you just not work with those people anymore?
Well, I mean, what you're describing is sort of an attempt at therapy through meditation, and in my view, that doesn't go anywhere. So the idea of trying to teach a human being meditation, I think, is really unserious from both the practitioner and the person who's trying to learn it. So the outrage that I'm speaking about is an outrage against the complete rejection of all the ideas that the person has grown up with, and most importantly, the ideas that no one could possibly reject because they seem to be so sacred. And even when those are rejected as false, then one tends to default towards outrage, and that largely, to some sense, comes from either because something in them senses that it's true, and they're not ready to kind of buy it, or they look at it such that, well, if what you're saying is true, then I've just wasted the last 30 years of my life, and that's a very, very difficult thing to accept. And the fact is that what I just said basically applies to us all. We have wasted our lives, and we continue to waste our lives in the most egregious way.
And so how can I, listening to that, understand how to not waste my life anymore?
Well, first of all, you have mentioned a few times that you're seeing a meditation instructor or a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking truth, right? So I don't hold anything back. If you want the truth, I'll speak the truth. You're wasting your life talking to a meditation instructor, and he's wasting his life trying to teach someone meditation, because meditation, it's kind of, it might lower your blood pressure, and it might make you feel a little better, and give you some ease throughout the day, but that isn't for the serious. I mean, those who are truly serious do not devote themselves to meditation instructors. In fact, that isn't part of the equation at all.
And would you include also coaching, therapy, anything one-on-one, or, I mean, obviously not, because you do one-on-one work. So
no. I mean, I will hold myself to the same standard. I mean, I don't protect myself. So my honest answer to your question is yes. I absolutely include all therapy, all one-on-one, all such coaching. Do I do that? I do, but I don't know what to say. There are some things that you just can't explain. I don't know what it is that I do. I don't have a brochure or a pamphlet, right? because it would be blank. I wouldn't know what to say. I don't even remember what I say to people, right? I have no briefcase. I have no plan. I have no idea what I'm going to say. You know, so I don't know what it is that I do, but in a fundamental sense, yes, I do work one-on-one with people, but it's not. It isn't in that way. It isn't to try to fix someone. It is extraordinarily difficult to explain something that I myself don't even understand. All I know is that it's like speaking in tongues. It just comes, and the the cause arises and the effect, follows, and that's all I can say.
And so then what is the importance of silence in what you're talking about?
That seems like a leading question.
Okay.
That question sort of, takes silence and uses it as a presupposed prescription and kind of wedges it into the end of the sentence, to make it, to make it sound as if it's necessary. And anything that arises by way of prescription, no matter how truthful it may be, in the very moment that it becomes prescribed, loses all its teeth and it loses all its value.
Do any of your clients ever ask for prescriptions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes many years for them to decondition themselves away from that, and that is natural, because how could it be otherwise? If that's all that you've known, it would be impractical to assume that that wouldn't be the lens that you look at it for some appreciable amount of time, even after we begin working together.
What is the biggest challenge that you face or that you see other people face in this addiction to prescriptions?
Coming to the realization that prescriptions lead only to prescriptions and never lead to any permanence or any form of arrival.
How did you get into this? How did you find yourself doing what you do?
I guess it's something that if I look back retrospectively, it's always been with me since I was small. I never considered that this would sort of become something that I do in any professional basis. But I guess it sort of it's something that I've always done, and I began saying a few things to people over the years, and they came back and say, well, something has totally changed in my life, and no one was more surprised than I was, because I don't even know what I said. And then I began doing it in sports and in professional sports, and it happened very, very organically.
And you have MD in your handle. Are you a medical doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And so did it arise out of that medical doctor practice? Did you?
No, that's completely divorced from this. I practiced medicine for a number of years, and it just sort of this sort of took on a life of its own, and so the calls from various clients and travel and just a true calling for it became overwhelming, not only from a time standpoint, but also from a sensibility standpoint and authenticity standpoint. And so it was inevitable that this was going to be the way.
What has been the biggest change that you've seen in a client?
All kinds of changes happen, none of which I really, try to predict, because I don't know when they will happen, if they will happen, or what happens. But typically there's usually a quite consistent and quite transformative amount of peace that happens within a human being's life, and there's no way that I can put my finger on what I said or did to help make that happen. And And quite honestly, it isn't even really me. It kind of happens through me.
Mm.
But I do know this. That one drop of truth is napalm. It's a hydrogen bomb, and it has the power to transform a human being absolutely and completely without his consent,
Mm.
simply upon contact. This is what I've learned.
I have a lot of fear that's been coming up recently, and I think it has a lot to do with what you just said about this kind of uncontrolled aspect of this process or whatever is happening. How do you deal with fear? Do you experience fear?
Yeah, occasionally,
Mm.
occasionally. Um, what is what is it that drives what you do
Mm.
for you?
Well, so yeah, what I do, there is an element of truth there. So I am inspired by the truth. I love talking to people. I love getting access to their wisdom, and then letting it kind of inform what's going on in my own life. I'm not really sure what I do yet. I love to do massage therapy, so I love giving massages.
Mhm.
I love interviewing people. Uh, so I'm not quite sure.
And so, what is your biggest chase?
Mm. First thing that comes to mind is maybe like dopamine at the moment, kind of excitement. Traditionally, excitement has been a big motivator and adventure. But as I get older, those things are not serving the same fulfilling purpose.
I understand.
Mm.
So, is this why you like to have topics beforehand?
So that's actually interesting because most of the time, other people have asked me for topics, and also I anticipated that other people would want topics. So I created topics, and then people started asking for them. And so you're the first person who said, no, I don't want any topics. And once I saw that as an option, I realized, okay, I've been going more and more towards moving towards not really having a theme just about stress and creativity, but about whatever comes up in the moment. So yeah, you asked why I have topics. Yeah, I'm not sure. Why is truth so important to you?
As opposed to?
Living in a delusion, or I mean, it's obvious once I say it, but
Exactly. That's what I wanted you to say. I want I wanted you to be able to answer that for yourself. There is nothing else.
yeah,
Why would someone want to live in lies?
yeah.
The only reason that you would live in lies is if you believe that the lies were truth.
But then most people on this planet are living in lies.
Absolutely. If lies are all you hear,
Mm-mm. Is it possible to make a living telling the truth? Again, I guess I just answered it because you're doing it. Um, is it possible to make a living being authentic or telling people the truth?
is it satisfying making a living telling lies?
Ultimately, no, but I think some people get that temporary satisfaction from it.
I don't. I think everyone's looking for permanent satisfaction.
Mm.
It is just that they try to string together temporary satisfactions in hopes that they will be able to patchwork them into permanence.
Mm. And then once they realize that that's not possible, then they open up to truth.
I don't think that they really ever come to that point of realizing it's not possible.
Mm.
Very few.
Mm. So part of me wants to ask, so what's the point then?
Of?
So if very few people ever access the truth, you do it because it's like there's something innate inside you that wants to.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. 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 I have no choice.
Mm.
And I don't think that people are as desirous of being divorced from the truth. If you, for instance, found, like, if you were chasing success, let's say, and you thought that success came from hard work, and someone came along to you and revealed to you, and you were the sort of human being who was sensitive and open to truth, which is a big prerequisite. And someone said, well, the path that you're walking isn't really it. If you walk this path over here, this is how things happen, and here's the evidence for it. I think that anyone who has any fairly significant degree of openness and desire to become successful would actually very naturally embrace that. So the truth isn't some ethereal, spiritual, abstract thing. I mean, it is hard rock practicality about the very, very day-to-day things that human beings seek, such as success, such as peace, such as freedom, such as having no conflict. All of these things, the things that are, so it is not that once one settles those things, then he searches for truth. Actually, each of those things has a truth. And the very reason that they have not been found is because one has not searched for the truth.
Why don't people search for the truth?
Well, because the only loudspeaker they hear is the loudspeaker of society and the mental models and nonsense like that. Right? And the the pseudo intellectuals and the spirituality books and the the power of now, right? And go and meditate and do mindfulness and chant and go to the Wisdom 2.0 conference, right? And wear a lanyard and I mean, there is enough there to last a human being 50 lifetimes. So when is he going to have the time to exhaust all those things and find out that none of them work? They are all disingenuous. They all have no basis in any concrete reality, which results in any form of a permanent transformation. One has to either see the pattern after having experienced 5 or 6 of those things and realize that after 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, after the number 4, 1 repeats, or they will have to go through all 7,422 over 50 lifetimes before they realize that it doesn't work.
What you're talking about, I recognize it intellectually, but I don't have an experiential understanding of it. But I do.
No. You don't have to have an experiential understanding of anything except for that which you've already experienced. And so the things that you have experienced, that you yourself have experienced on a repeated basis, have they resulted in an arrival? Have they resulted in a permanent transformation?
No.
No. Okay. So you don't need anything besides that. Knowing where it isn't is far more instructive and practical and immediate and acute and powerful than knowing where it is.
When did you figure that out? Is there a moment?
That's a good question. I don't know when I figured that out, but I will confess something which may actually help to explain why, perhaps to some degree, why such a path has become so appealing to me, is that I've never walked the way of the masses to a fault. That's just by nature. That wasn't by design. That's just naturally. Whatever everyone else did, I did the opposite. I never was a crowd or a group individual. To me, that was the Antichrist to follow a group. If you know, I've always been that way, and so it helps to be that way, in that if your DNA already, for whatever reason, happens to move in such a way, you are more likely to stumble upon something unique, because where you will be looking will not be in the town center.
How many of your clients have gotten to the point where they get that permanent transformation?
You know, the only way you can address permanence is to you watch them till the end of their life, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there's been quite significant transformations. I mean, I don't, you know, I don't know how much it really matters talking about clients. The most important part of a client is his degree of sincerity, his degree of seriousness. And seriousness is a very rare thing. But the individuals who have seriousness, who have true, genuine sincerity, those people have a wonderful opportunity. They have a great, they are blessed with a magical wand. Because without that, there's little to no possibility.
Can seriousness be cultivated or
Absolutely.
taught?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, what matures over time is sincerity and seriousness. In a person who has a natural bent in that direction.
And this isn't seriousness as the opposite of levity or the opposite of being fun.
No, this is seriousness and sincerity. By that I mean a true, genuine, and authentic desire to attain or to arrive.
Yeah, for me, I have so much fear that comes up about that final and permanent transformation, because I've read all these books about enlightenment and awakening, and they all describe it in various different ways, but some of which seem quite frightening.
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant what enlightenment is. I think that it's far more relevant to see truth as your feet touch the ground. And so in your daily life, the things that you do, in whatever it is that you are genuinely pursuing, the things that attract you in your life, be it your profession or relationships or whatever it is, that is your enlightenment. Devote yourself to looking into and to teasing apart the strands of those pursuits, to see where are the lies and the disingenuousness and the untruths and the unseriousness and the prescription following and the empty chases. Where are those things? That's your enlightenment.
And it's so interesting because, you know, I see on your Twitter profile you say by invite only and only work with these people, and you've really kind of chosen. It seems like you've chosen exactly who you want to work with no sort of sense of shame or anything like that. And part of me is like, I want to get there as well, where I can stop being stuck in this sense of scarcity all the time.
Yeah, I think that comes down to the DNA that one has, which dictates his degree of compromise. You must find for yourself the things that you will not compromise. You must find for yourself the things that are non-negotiable to you. And then those become your those become the structure within which you move.
Mm.
They create your boundaries.
Mm. So not in a sense of prescribing boundaries to myself and saying this is where I will not. It just comes naturally out of doing it.
If you have to convince yourself, it isn't truth.
Yeah. What do you say to your clients when you see them getting back into this prescription mode?
They all get back into the prescription.
Yeah.
And it is a systematic and continual revisitation of the truth and coming face to face with the fact that they are succumbing once again to an age-old habit of prescription and pleasure chasing. It is a constant revisitation of that, which over time grows within them. And as it grows, it begins to become their new norm and their new skin without any form of effort or practice or rituals or doings or activities or homework or 5-step plans or anything.
Yeah.
The truth always happens by itself. Falseness and untruth requires effort and practice.
And conditioning.
Human beings are conditioned to practice and never to arrive.
In a sense, it sounds very nice to get to that point where you don't need prescriptions, because it does seem like it is a lot of work. Always thinking about diet.
The greatest quote work will be in coming face to face with the truth that all of the things that you are chasing are empty, and all of the rules that you are following are lies. That's your work. That's what will take work. The rest is downhill. You have, and no one should ever believe me about anything. You have millions of people meditating. You have people, what meditation do you or society do? You do your 2 hours a day or your whatever's prescribed by the meditation instructor. These monks in the temples of Thailand and Nepal meditate for 10, 12, 15 hours a day.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Are they Buddha?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
So then what's your measly 20 minutes in the pot going to do? Okay? So let's just look at don't believe me. Don't believe me. Just look at the evidence. It's all a scam. Everything in this society is a scam. It is all ribbon cutting ceremonies. It is all wearing the proper dress and having the proper name and saying the proper things and laughing at the proper time and telling a joke every 2.6 minutes. It's all a scam. Everything is false. And it has nothing to do with what in the beginning. It has nothing to do with what the truth really is. It has everything to do with seeing through the scam. That will lead you to truth.
But if you see through the scam and then you go back into your normal life, with school, kids, and all this different stuff,
then you will go back to your normal life.
Yeah. But
looking at all the things in your normal life through your newfound eyes that see truth, that look for truth. Even in every relationship, in every mundane activity, you will have become reoriented. The person who is looking now will not be the same person who was looking back then. And because the person has changed, the things he sees will change.
Doesn't it ever, maybe when people first see this truth, and then after that, when they go back to their normal lives and they see that everything has changed, isn't there an element of shock or difficulty that they experience in going back to those rules?
whatever
Mhm.
shock or difficulty there may be, how does it compare
Mm.
to the shock and difficulty of spending 80 years living a life of lies
Mm.
and chasing prescriptions and getting nowhere?
Mm.
What difficulty are you comparing?
Mm.
The acute and temporary shock of having seen the truth,
Mm.
or the lifelong shock of being assaulted on a daily basis and never getting anything for your time?
Mm.
Which shock is greater to you? Why are you so worried about the shock and the pain that you
Mm.
might experience after seeing the truth, as opposed to that which you've been experiencing since the day you've been born?
A lot of what I thought was true was very painful, and so I imagine whatever is behind that step is going to be painful as well.
It the pain has never stopped.
Mm.
As long as you don't arrive,
Mm.
the pain never stops.
Mm-hmm. So there is no gradual way to get there.
What are you really trying to ask?
Is there a way to go slow and steady so that when I do arrive, it's in a way that I can integrate?
If I told you there was $1 billion 4 miles from your house and it had your name on it, would you ask me if there's a way to go slow and steady?
No.
Okay. So then that's my point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the way, whether you want to go fast or slow and steady, is your choice.
Mm.
The way is to see through your lies.
And there's no prescription to see through the lies. It's just
Well, if I give you a prescription to see through the lies,
it's a lie.
then I'll give you another lie. Has the things that you've experienced on a recurring basis, let's keep it practical. Have the things that you've experienced on a recurring basis caused you to transform?
No.
Okay, well then the
Why?
only reason that you would continue to do them is if you were told and therefore you believed, or you thought on your own that it takes time. That yes, it hasn't happened in 20 years, but I've been told that it might take 50 years. That's the only reason that you would continue. And so the only question then becomes, at what point? What's your date? What is the time and the date at which you evaluate and say, okay, where am I? What have I gotten out of this? Did it work or did it not? Or is there no date and no time, in which if there's no date and no time, you're sort of stuck. See, people feel comfortable talking about meditation and mindfulness and all these things because they sound nice and they're really soothing to the ears, like a humidifier in the corner. And it doesn't cause anyone any consternation. They can go along in their pretty little lies and their rose-colored plastic flowers, and they can that's why everyone likes to talk about them. Listen, if something worked, it wouldn't be institutionalized. Only lies are institutionalized. Listen, if you in the old days were in the gold rush of Colorado and you found gold, would you have a conference? Okay. So the things that are institutionalized and conferenced are like the leftover meat that you use to make the next day's soup. Okay? That's what you feed to the dogs. So all the leftovers, you repackage it and you create a conference. You think the people who are invited to those conferences, whatever small truths they may have, and if they have become world class in their field, that they're going to reveal those things to you? And do you think that even if they do, that they're going to reveal it in a way, and even if they do, you think with one explanation on stage that piece of information is going to transform you? It's all a scam.
Do any of your clients, or do you ever experience insomnia from the work that you do?
That's an interesting question. I've had a couple of people tell me that they after experiencing specific questions, that they had a hard time sleeping. And others have told me that the nightmares that they used to have,
Go
they
away.
don't have anymore.
That's the main challenge that I face with things like this. If is just won't be able to get to sleep.
Yeah. I never thought that would be the case, but I've heard that on a number of occasions.
Well, thank you for this.
You're welcome.